All right, welcome back to the Pro-Pilot Playbook podcast. We've been off the air here for took a couple week break, just trying to maneuver through this quarantine and the COVID-19 stuff. Today is April 15th, and we are right in the midst of it all here.
Yeah. Social distancing here, coming with you live via Zoom. And it's just like a real newscast now. Everybody's at their house. And what better way to reach out to you guys and give us, we just want to give you our take on everything that's happening. And of course, we don't know any more than anyone else does at this point what's going to happen, but we can talk about what we know and what we think,
Yeah,
and
we should probably address that. We should probably address that for a moment. Any of you listening on the actual podcast and not watching us on YouTube, you're going to notice a difference in the audio quality. We usually have studio mics and a nice HD camera, but today it's all Zoom,
Yep.
in the spirit.
And then those of you,
quarantine.
more importantly, those of you that are watching video, they're going to notice something completely different without Sean. He's got his quarantine beard going.
Right. As pilots, professional employees in general, usually, you don't get to grow a beard. So I thought,
right,
why not? I wasn't expecting all the gray that came in, though, but whatever.
Looks good, man. Looks good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
awesome.
So let's. This podcast we're going to be talking about, just what the heck's going on from our perspective of talking to our colleagues. And we both got buddies in the airlines. Of course, we're both corporate pilots, and just give you our take of what's happening right now from the inside, and our 2 cents on what we think is going to spin out of this thing.
Yeah. And let's start off by saying the format is going to be, we're going to talk about the severity of what's happening, and it is really bad. But then at the end, don't quit the video halfway through, because at the end we'll talk about what we think is a very positive spin on this. But to start off, we made that coronavirus video, a month ago, Sean, when this was first starting to break. I think there were, very few cases in the U.S., if any, at the time. I have to go back and review it. And, we were staying kind of on top of this, and we had great fear that this could be a very serious situation with the aviation industry. But again, we didn't really know. It was more of a story, because it was like, man, look at how bad this could be, really. Well, what's unfolded here for aviation is worse than what we could have thought was the worst scenario possible at the time. But basically, we've got this virus spreading, and I know everyone knows this is watching, but it's causing people, number one, not to travel because of work-related and gathering issues. Number two, not to want to be on an airplane because they don't want to be next to people. And number three, not having the economic resources to travel anymore. And maybe fourth on top of that is everybody's using their vacation and they're off now, so they may not want to go on vacation, once this is all over. So this is a dramatic problem for the airlines in particular, not just airlines corporate too, but just to highlight, I got an article here from USA Today, and I had heard this, and I just Googled it real fast. Now, this is from April 8th, but it shows that the TSA screened on April 8th 97,130 travelers total in one day in the entire United States. In Atlanta Hartsfield, sometimes 1 million travelers go through in one day.
Yeah,
right?
It's actually a little over 300,000 people. Their usual is 300,000 people a day go through Atlanta Hartsfield.
It says it was 90% fewer flyers than the same day the year before.
Yeah, I just saw, I read something yesterday that they usually have 2,600 flights a day depart Atlanta, or in and out of Atlanta. And yesterday, or at the end of last week, there was 1,200 flights a day. And usually those 2,600 flights are packed. I mean, there's not
Yeah.
usually many seats left on those airplanes. The airlines figured out how to make money, and that's don't let the airplane pull away from the gate unless every seat has a butt in it. And those airplanes that were leaving Atlanta now they're empty. One or two people in it. I just posted that video a couple weeks ago. The last video I posted to the channel was me taking the airplane to paint, which is the only time I've flown in going on 2 months now. And the airports were empty. I was one of a dozen people in the airports. One airplane I connected, and one airplane had 4 people on it. The other airplane had 3 people on it. I mean, it was weird. 3 major international airports. If you guys haven't seen that video, it's pretty
pull it
eye-opening. But yeah, I also just saw the
just
airlines.
To interject.
Yeah.
It's one thing, Sean, to sit here and talk about these numbers, but when you watch that video that you made and you actually see those airports vacant like that, it is a whole nother perspective. So yeah, I'd encourage you guys to watch it.
It was very weird. I mean, yeah, the airlines have already lost in 2020. They've already lost $314 billion in ticket sales that they normally would have had already in 2020. And that number is 25% higher than anything anybody was expecting, all their best number crunchers at the airlines. So we're already, not only are we on uncharted ground, but we're beyond that into stuff they couldn't even foresee.
Yes.
Almost all the airlines are saying they're, this is worse than 9/11.
You're hearing it's like 9/11 and the financial crisis all rolled into one,
Mm-hmm.
It's not good. So
the
we got a
airlines
real
are
problem.
getting help, though. The airlines are getting help. We got that, right off the bat, there was the CARES Act. I think that was $58 billion or something to keep the airlines, from firing people and to keep their employees paid through the end of September. But that wasn't good enough. Last week, the airlines were back at the government lobbying for more money. And I guess it was, it was the airline industry package. Just glancing at some notes I took here. And that just went through over the weekend or on Monday morning here. And that was another $32 billion to keep the airlines going, all their expenses and everything, which I guess it takes $10 to $12 billion a month to keep all these airlines flying around empty airplanes.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, and that money's going to be dispersed through all the majors, American, United, Delta. And then there's also a couple of discount carriers that slipped in there, like Allegiant, Frontier, and one huge regional operator, SkyWest. But everything I've been seeing, the people who are the majors, of course, they're going to survive and do whatever. But the losers in this thing are going to be these regional airlines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are not, from everything I've researched, they are not necessarily allowed to have any of that money or not getting any of that money for whatever reason. As of now, I mean, but
right. And then it's part of this bailout money. The government is got a lot of conditions that they put into that, like they could be on the board. They can't do stock buybacks, which is crazy. I mean, I actually didn't even pay much attention to what a stock buyback really was until I started really reading into this. But just to tell our viewers quickly what that means, because you hear a lot of that in talk of these bailouts. But basically, you have an airline like they all do it. An airline like Delta or American or whatever, and a lot of their executives are paid off of stock. Their actual compensation is not that high. But, they get a ton of company stock, and when the company stock does well, then they make a ton of money. Well, which is on the outside looking in is a great system. If your management does well, then then the whole company does well. So it's an incentive-based pay. But what they end up doing is they take company profits and they use those profits to buy stock, which actually, so the company buys back stock. That's where the terminology comes. which then inflates the stock price, which makes all the shareholders happy, but it also makes all the managers happy, but it kind of artificially inflates it. Well, the issue with that is now they don't have any reserve cash. Like you look at a company with a strong balance sheet like Apple that has all this cash, they go over a hurdle like this like it's nothing. The airlines have a burn rate of, all this money per day, and it's only sustainable for 30 days or whatever. They haven't saved any money because they spent all the profits not upgrading their airplanes, not putting their money in a fund just in case they have to weather something like this, but instead using it to inflate their stock prices. So the government's like, nah, we're not having that. So if you take this money, you can't do that. And then I know they're going to have a say on a lot of things with it. So
right.
there's
Yeah, I
going to be
think
some
they can't.
changes.
If they take the money, they're not allowed to furlough employees. They have to maintain routes. Well, certain routes. I think that was some of the back and forth they were having. What routes they can drop, what routes they can't.
Yes.
And yeah, there are strings attached to this money. Yeah. And then there was also some argument about whether this was going to be a grant or whether they're going to have to pay this thing back.
Right. And if you could, because you got more airlines experience than me, Sean, but talk about, this is something the viewers may not understand too. So it's my understanding when they run those flights sometimes that there's only a couple passengers on it. A lot of times they're running what's called belly freight. So the airlines will run cargo, like U.S. mail and packages and all that stuff that you don't see. And that's part of the route too. And they get compensation for that. Is that true?
So this is actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to bring it up if you didn't, but this is actually something they've been pushing for. There's always freight on passenger airliners, but only certain things are allowed to be on there. And I don't.
After value jet.
Yeah. Well, they were hauling company material on that one. But
okay.
Yeah, that was those were oxygen generators. Yeah, they were aircraft parts. They were just moving. Anyway, but there's always freight on passenger airliners, but it's very regulated. There's only certain things that are allowed to travel there. That's why we have a UPS, FedEx, whatever. Otherwise, they would just be using the airlines. But they're trying to pass something now to allow more stuff on the airlines that was not allowed before. And I don't know where all those lines are, a list of what is and what can't go on there, but that is something they're working on right now.
Isn't there required slots too? Like they can't just cancel the flights, like they have slots at all these airports and they have to maintain that.
Right. So yes, absolutely. And I don't know, I'm not an expert on that, but yes, that is absolutely one of the things that, if they're taking this money, that they have to maintain, their route
scheduled service and all that kind of stuff. Right. Yeah, man, what a fiasco.
They may not have 8 flights a day going from Miami to New York, but they got to at least maintain a flight a day, Miami to New York, that kind of thing.
I got you. Well, let's talk briefly too about how this has affected corporate aviation, which is the world that we're in right now.
Sure.
What have you been up to, Sean?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I've just been spending a lot of time with the kids, working in the yard, trying to do projects around the house.
Yeah.
And it's I'm ready to go back to work. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too. That's the same thing here. If you think about, so corporate has no restrictions on it. Okay. I mean, if you have your own jet right now, you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want.
Right.
The issue is, where are you going? Right. So there's really only 3 reasons you would use your private plane for: to go to a meeting. Well, no one's doing that, right? Because you don't want to meet with anybody. Maybe a convention. None of those. So no events. Or maybe you go on vacation. Nobody's doing that either, right? So there's really, unless it's essential business where you're transporting, like, I hear we've got some major retailers in town. They're doing flights to have meetings with Walmart, or you're meeting with the government in Washington, D.C., something essential. But a lot of that they're doing like on this Zoom, So there's just not a whole lot of flying going on. Some of it's extracting people. but you
Yep.
know, this family member's here and they want to go here. Most of the flights that I'm seeing though, in our hangar is moving the owners around from their houses, you know, because no one wants to stay in a hotel. So, you know, they may be here because they want to be in this house, and then, you know, this happens or there's restrictions happen, so then they're back over here. But just not a lot of action, man. It really, I mean, is that what your missions have been, Sean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, right at the beginning, I took some people down to Key West, like right when they were starting, when they were starting to, I don't know that a true quarantine had been issued yet, but I remember it was close enough to everything beginning that I remember thinking, this is silly. You guys want to go on vacation to Key West. And they were supposed to be down there a week. And 3 days into it, they called me to come pick them up. And that's when everything was already, it was spun up. I mean, there were states quarantining, and
Right.
yeah, all the restaurants were shut down at that time. And yeah, that was the
Right.
last real flight I had done.
Yeah.
And then I took an airplane to the paint shop, which was the video that I
That
posted.
video. Yeah. Yeah.
But
You know,
no, nothing. I mean, there is nothing happening except for the story you were just telling me about before we hit the record button here on, the fire sale airplane.
yeah, we're having an operator shut down, unfortunately. At least not yet. The layoffs in the corporate world are not as severe as what you're seeing in the airline world, but you know, we're definitely going to see some, and more operators selling airplane or streamlining. The thing is, though, when you have an asset like this, it's not that easy to sell a jet right now. And if you have it, sometimes you might as well use it. So this may shake out kind of over time. And, you know, but the strong companies always have a need for airplanes. You know, it's kind of like the old Warren Buffett quote, right? When the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming with their clothes off, right?
right.
So we'll see some of these, another slang term would be, I hate to even say it's a little harsh, but nickel millionaires that had leveraged themselves and bought these jets and things, and now they're like, oh my God, you know. But I don't want to be that harsh. I mean, there's a lot of really, really rich people too that, you know, are in a business that are devastated by this. I mean, the tourism business and all that. So I shouldn't even joke with those terms, but yeah,
Right.
you're definitely going to see corporate pilots get laid off too. I mean, spending, this is
Right.
not a good situation.
By and large, though, I really believe that the corporate world will bounce back quicker once the quarantines are lifted and people are at least allowed to go out to restaurants and stuff. I mean, and
Yes.
business spins back up. It's my belief that the corporate world will pick up pretty quick. Now,
Well,
the airlines are a different story. I predict that the airlines will be one of the last businesses to recover, period. And as a matter of fact, I don't think that they're going to reemerge looking anything like the airlines that we had in January or February.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
just a quick comment on that. The corporate side of things, this virus has actually, you know, spooked a lot of people, and it has caused. I have heard on the charter side, charter is private jet rental, a slight uptick. You know, the travel's down, but people don't want to get on an airliner. So
right.
somebody that had the money, but they're like, nah, I'll just take the airlines. It's cheaper. You know, it's wasteful to rent a private jet. Now they're like, well, you know, I maybe we'll charter, because then I know I can go with my family. I know exactly who's on there, all that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, aircraft ownership looks real appealing right now. You can go anywhere you want with no, you know, in your clean airplane with, you know, yeah,
Sure.
with no restrictions. And then, you know, the amount of airline flights is going down, so you can't get to places as convenient without going through connecting in some dirty airport.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's one of the, when I say the airlines are going to reemerge differently, you have, these major airlines like Delta that, are canceling orders for jets that they had in. They're already coming up with a strategy of how to deal with this afterwards. And the fact that I just mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that the regional carriers are not necessarily at this point in time right now. I mean, this could all change tomorrow. Everything changes daily in this world. I mean, this craziness. But the regionals are not able to get their hands on any of that money that the government sent out. That is huge. I don't know that. I mean, somebody's got to be putting everything together. But I mean, the regional carriers account for, if you look at a United, an American, and a Delta, those regional carriers account for 50%, half of their departures, easy. To get people to a hub where they get on a big jet to go wherever, or they go to a hub and get on another small jet. So if some of these majors let these regional carriers die, it's going to be a complete redesign of how everything works, because I don't know. I'm sure they're already starting to plan for it, but that's big. And then what's going to happen with all those regional pilots is, that's going to take care of any shortages that the majors had, because those guys are going to flock over there. If they even need anybody, probably not. But, It's going to be interesting here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, we obviously sell a product, you and I do, to help get people into aviation. And it's what we want to do is encourage people to become pilots. And one thing I do want to say is, no one knows what the future holds, but one theory, and I think it is a very viable theory, is, it's bad now, but this was a virus. If you really think about it, this was something that no one could control, that is a virus that's scaring people to go places and do things. Once there's a vaccine for this virus, and then everybody can operate freely and do what they want, and demand comes back, it may not necessarily snap back like what the president wants to say, which I hope he's right, but it may not. But once the vaccine comes out and there's treatment, it is going to come back. Now, if it comes back to the level where it was at before, where we had a pilot shortage, the pilot shortage is going to be much, much worse, because,
absolutely.
Not only did they not hire all this time, they laid off everybody. And then you got to retrain everything. And then demand is going to come back probably faster than they can react. And, if you're a new pilot wanting to get into flying, it takes a couple years anyway. I mean, if you use our fastest method, you could do it maybe a year, but realistically, it's probably 2 years. So you might be at an unbelievable time. So if somebody's laid off right now watching, and they're thinking about doing a career change or something, we don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, it's possible you could be in good shape,
Right. Yeah, actually, and I've been saying that from the get-go. Absolutely. We were already in an unprecedented pilot shortage, something we had never been that deep and that bad. I mean, maybe this will be a little bit of a leveling out period or whatever, but once everything spins back up, and for the airlines, it'll probably be, a couple of years or whatever, but we'll be right back there again and worse. I 100% agree. So if you were ever thinking about, becoming a pilot, I mean, greatest time ever. And, we've been talking about all this bad stuff. I guess we're kind of switching gears into what's good right now, right?
Yeah, yes. I couldn't help it. Sorry.
It's fine. No, it's great. We need to. But the flight training thing, there are some schools that are shut down, but there are many flight schools that are still operating. In Florida, flight training was deemed, what's the word? My mind just went blank. Necessary.
Essential.
Essential. That's what I'm trying to think of. So flight training is essential. There's schools here in the Cincinnati area where we're at that are still operating. And the AOPA put out some guidelines on, conducting flight training and, keeping safe, whatever, doing it safely without spreading stuff. So absolutely. I mean, by the time everything spins back up, if you started today, you will be in the prime time, perfect position in line to get hired instantly.
Right. Yeah, so hang in there. I mean, don't totally boast your bubble. Unfortunately, if you're unemployed, you may not have the money to start your training, and we get all that stuff. But
Right.
just take everything one day at a time, and be thankful for where you're at right now, try to use this time. I mean, geez, oh Pete, I mean, you and I have a lot of off time, but this is ridiculous, man. It's
Right.
like,
Well, I mean,
what?
you could definitely be using this time to get a game plan together. And
Yeah,
that's one of the things our program, the Pro-Pilot Playbook, does. It helps you put that game. Actually, it gives you the game plan. To
right.
get there the fastest, cheapest way possible. And this podcast wasn't necessarily meant to be a commercial, but I mean, getting your game plan together, start your training. It's a great time to be studying for the written tests. You know,
Yeah,
which can be done. You just take a couple lessons and you could start working on that written. Yeah, I mean, just
yeah.
such a great time for somebody wanting to get into the aviation world.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a good time for any personal development because,
It's not going anywhere. Humans are still going to need to fly around in airplanes. It will be
right.
back,
And I'm a strong believer in investing in yourself. I mean, look at what the market's doing. It's crashed. Real estate's crashed, but you invest in yourself. That usually gives you the best return. So,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this too will pass, and we're all going to come out of this on the other end and be a lot smarter.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's a real eye opener for me. I mean, we both were pilots during 9/11, saw that.
Right.
We worked during the financial crisis. In this one, just how we could go from 4 weeks ago in this unbelievable position in aviation and really the entire country and world for that matter, and then like this, man, it's just shaking like a snow globe. It's
Yep,
crazy.
I got furloughed from my first airline right after 9/11,
Okay.
and which eventually, well, actually, they did call me back, but it took um, I mean, it took like a year or something for them to call me back. By that time, I had already found another job, and I didn't go back. But
Oh yeah. Let's tell the viewers, talk about the furlough process and how that works in an airline and what that means and your seniority number and all that. So so no one's gotten furloughed yet, but when the funding runs out, it'll probably happen. So what happens?
so in every here's the basic idea of what the furlough is. It's instead of being laid off, being fired, you have no more job or whatever. We explained this in another podcast, I believe, also. But
Oh, okay.
um, yeah, you're actually sent home. You're done working, no pay, and you're assigned a number. It's based on your seniority number usually, and after everything is over and the airline or economy or whatever the problem was recuperates and stabilizes and they need to bring people back on, they will call people back up in the order of their seniority. And then at that point, you're going to have to go back to training because it's probably been over, if it's been over 6 months, you're going to have to go back and get in the sim
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. But it's a way of, putting people in standby and not paying them and yeah, keeping guys hanging out.
Don't you still get your travel benefits and stuff? Well, that's on, or is there
You know
anything?
what? It's possible, probably.
Yeah.
I would think yes, but again, that's going to be an airline specific thing. I
And then
can't
you can obviously
imagine.
get unemployment and all that, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine you not having your travel thing. What'd you say about unemployment?
And they can collect unemployment, obviously, and all that stuff. Right?
Yeah, they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. All
But
right.
I mean, most guys go out. I know furloughed airline guys, they'll go out and try to find some corporate gig or whatever. But that's not going to exist now. I mean, because those
Yeah.
none of those people are looking for pilots either
Right.
at the moment.
Right. Yes. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting several months here to see how this all shakes out. But we hope the best, prepare for the best or worst, and hope for the best. And like you said, this will pass, and hopefully we're in a better spot in a couple of years than we ever were.
Absolutely. I mean, what's the alternative?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You can work at Amazon, man. They're drivers.
Yeah.
They're hiring drivers.
Oh man. Yeah, they're blowing up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Go
Good.
fly freight. Those jobs are going to be
Yeah.
flooded.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Those freight guys aren't going to need any pilots. They're going to be lying out the door, guys trying to get over there to fly Amazon boxes around.
Right. Well, keep your questions coming, guys. We love that. We got a few we're going to address in another podcast that wasn't coronavirus related, but yeah, we love questions. Any guys have questions about the market and starting your training or whatever,
Yep.
Send them over and we'll address them live. We got one good one we're going to do in our next one. A person sent about 6 good questions.
Yeah, actually, I'm
Cover.
staring at it right now. He sent 10 questions.
10. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
10 questions. They're all over the place. We might break that into a couple different episodes and hit some more people too. But yeah, it's a podcast at Pro-Pilot Playbook.com if you want to send us a question. And again, thanks for tuning in, folks. You can, if you're listening to this on the podcast channel, you can go to the YouTube and actually see my bearded face and Mike's command post he's sitting in there. Or if you're on YouTube and whatever, you want to listen on the podcast, it's there too. Anyway, but thanks for tuning in, folks. And we'll keep these things coming weekly here for you.
Yes, stay safe and wash your hands.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks a lot.